Hello? You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it.
What's that? Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
Get out there, play hard, enjoy those games.
Welcome in to Go Big or Go Home. I'm the quarantined old man, joined by the marvelous youngster Kevin Cunningham, a.k.a. Kid Cunny on Twitter. How you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing good. You, Troy, on the other hand, not as good. We haven't done a show for a couple weeks. So
yeah, and it is due to the COVID-19. The COVID-19 virus finally found me. And you and I have been talking since the pandemic started. In my job and what I do, I am suspect to being out in the world in the virus. And I do apologize to people if I've got a raspy voice, a stuffed up nose, because I did contract the COVID-19 virus. I was a positive test. And I just want to give a PSA, youngster, before we start the show. We usually don't sit out here and get on soapboxes, and we don't do political stuff. But I'm at a point right now where we've talked about it a million times during the pandemic. Wearing a mask sucks. It sucks beyond belief. But I did everything in my control, my company guidelines, the mask, the sanitizing, the 6 feet, being safe. I did everything that I could do, because as I told you, yeah, I feel like crap, but I'm going to recover. My wife, on the other hand, has a multitude of health problems. And after I tested positive, she went and got a test. Her test came back abnormal. Not positive, abnormal. But I'm quarantined in one room. She's quarantined in another room. I can hear her cough through the walls. She has health problems. I am more worried about what's going to happen to my wife recovering than myself. Thus, it led me to post on LinkedIn. And for all the followers on LinkedIn that listen to the show, that gave me support, I appreciate every bit of support. Because for those of you that want to continue to say it is your right not to wear a mask, it is your right to go in public and do what you want, that is a bunch of BS. You need to be unselfish and think about other people that can really be affected by this virus. Again, youngster, right. I feel like crap. I literally do. I feel like crap, but I'm like, we didn't do a show last week. Got to do one this week. I will barge through it. I feel good enough I can get through it. Last week I did not. Last week there's no way I could have got through any shows. But again, and it may sound like I'm preaching, and it may sound like I'm on a soapbox, and I am, because you always think, oh, it's my right. You know what? It is your right. Stop being selfish, because there are people out there that are going to be affected by this virus in different ways. And again, youngster, I did everything that my company asked. Every time I went out, I wore a mask. I had sanitizer in my car. I washed my hands at home. Lysol wiped, we Lysol sprayed, we did everything. But somewhere in the world, I caught the virus. And why is that? Because somebody was selfish and didn't want to follow the guidelines. So there's my little rant, youngster. I hope everything's well. Hope you and the missus had a good Thanksgiving. Ours sucked, literally. We didn't have a Thanksgiving. My wife and I both quarantined. My son, negative test, so he's upstairs, running the roost upstairs in the house by himself because his test is negative, which is great. But, yeah, we didn't have a holiday because of COVID. And, we'll make it up, but we're going to do a show today. But I hope you had a good holiday, youngster. How are you?
I did. Obviously, sorry to hear about your Thanksgiving week of hell. To be honest, is what it is. But I think it's something to piggyback off you, and, maybe we lose listeners forever because of what we're saying here. But at the end of the day, and you can say that okay, masks are uncomfortable. And like you said, Troy, the whole thing of it's your right not to wear a mask, to me, I'll disagree, and I'll say it is your right not to wear a mask. At the same time, if you decide to do that, then you just simply put out to the world that you don't care about other people. You don't care how it affects other people. You don't care that you could potentially pass a virus that kills other people. So it's that simple. I mean, either you have a brain and you're caring enough to put on a mask for 10 minutes while you're at a store or whatever it is, or you're not. To me, it's that simple. And then there will be people who go against it and say, well, how do you know masks are even that effective? Are they even effective at all? Is it pointless in the end of the day? So, at the end of the day, it's just going to be an
And honestly, youngster, I guess I could make that argument, right?
Sure.
Because I wore a mask every place I went, but I look at it and I'm trying to think, where did I contract this? And I'm thinking, okay, well, there were times when I didn't have a glove on and I touched something at one of the stores I was at when I was out with my guys,
right.
When I was out in the field. I touched something, I touched my mask, and then, you know what? Guess what? I took the mask off when I got in my car, I touched my face. There I go.
Right.
That's probably how I got it. It wasn't in passing from another person because I had my mask on. Every time I came in contact with somebody, somewhere I touched the virus.
Right.
Somewhere.
Right. And masks are not, again, 100% the be-all, end-all. There's no way you can get the virus if you have a mask. If two people have masks on and they pass by each other, it can be transmitted. I mean, there's a reason why, however many hundreds of thousands of people have contracted the disease. It's not all perfect practice, and terrible practice leads to someone getting it. But again, it helps. I mean, it's something blocking your mouth, your face from another person's mouth and face. To me, it seems silly to say that it wouldn't at least help. Is it 100% preventative? No. I can't say that, but it obviously is helpful in some way, shape, or form. But anyway, so now.
Yeah, and I'm just asking people to be safe. That's it. And like I said, youngster, I'm going to recover. I don't know how long it'll take. I need to, according to my tracer, I need to quarantine until the 5th of December. I just worry about my wife, and that's my biggest concern right now with her health problems. I do want to pass this out. We are recording on the Interpeak virtual studio line, so thank you, Interpeak, for sponsoring our studio line. But I do want to pass out all the thanks to people that try to reach out to myself and my family during this time. 2 of us quarantined, so a lot of people reaching out asking if they can bring us things. I know my half-sister brought over some Lysol wipes and wanted to bring food over. Unfortunately, where my wife and I are, we can't taste, we can't smell, so to eat food right now, we have no appetite. So it's like, hey, thanks for the offer. We're good. If you want to bring over some juice, that would be great. We're trying to keep fluids, but I do want to personally just reach out to all my friends and family that are listening, that have reached out, that have offered a helping hand during this time, because it is trying, youngster. And we've sat here and for a year now we've heard stories, and you and I have not been a part of it. Now I am part of it, and it just became a reality. Like, wow, when you're quarantined, you're quarantined. And believe me, I've done a lot of thinking, because all you can do is sit in this room and not even having the energy, though, to be online. I haven't been online for a week. I've rarely done DraftKings, so I feel like crap when I've rarely done DraftKings. But it's just one of those things. Now that you're a part of it, and when you are a part of it, it really gives you a different light as to what's going on in the world with this COVID. And quarantine is nothing to laugh at. And people say, quarantine and get off of work. Guess what? I wish I could go to work today. I really wish I could go to work. I am tired of being quarantined, and I'm only half done. I'm only halfway home, youngster. So I snuck out to the garage because that's still kind of quarantining. I went out the room, went through the kitchen, went outside to record just to get outside for a little bit. But I'll tell you what, it's a real thing. But Big Ten, youngster, Big Ten is also being affected by COVID. I mean, it's one of those things. We've got a lot of COVID implications going on right now, and it sucks for the Badgers. We'll talk about those Badgers in a little bit, but it's affecting the Big Ten in a big-time way right now, youngster.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I think, the overall theme of this show this week. Again, we missed last week's show, again, due to what we've just been talking about the last 15 minutes. But at the end of the day, like, there's rules put in place for the Big Ten, for the college football playoff, that you have to play a certain amount of games to be eligible for the Big Ten Championship, the college football playoff, and that number is essentially 6. It's not set in stone. The number 6 is, as far as I believe the college football playoff, you have to play 6, but if you play 5 and you get to the Big Ten Championship and you win, and so that's 6, and then you could theoretically that way get into the college football playoff. That's kind of Ohio State's hope at this point, because they've already had 2 cancellations. They're hoping to play this coming Saturday against Michigan State. If they don't, then the max games that they can play would be 5. So that's where things obviously get interesting. As of now, they're still on top of the Big Ten East because they're 4-0. Indiana's 5-1. Ohio State beat Indiana. Again, we missed last week, so we're kind of skipping over. To go through those games from 2 weeks ago would be pointless at this point. I can list off the scores. Minnesota on Friday, November 20th. This, again, was 2 weeks ago. Minnesota beat Purdue by a field goal. Ohio State beat Indiana. They were in control of that game. Indiana scored 14 points in the fourth quarter to make it interesting. Ohio State ended up winning by a touchdown. Northwestern beat Wisconsin. That was a massive game for the Wildcats. Illinois beat Nebraska. And Iowa beat Penn State. Oh, and Michigan beat Rutgers in triple overtime. So there were a number of, interesting things that we could talk, for an hour straight about a few of those games. But again, 2 weeks ago, to go over those games, kind of pointless. But anything in general, Troy, that you want to hit on? Obviously, Wisconsin losing, but at the end of the day, I mean, they've played 3 games to this point. So had they won that game and been 3-0, thered be no way they could get to the Big Ten Championship. The other thing I want to mention, too, before I let you talk about 2 weeks ago, is that it's possible to get to the Big Ten Championship if you only play 5, but that means the rest of the conference, and I don't remember the wording exactly of it, but I believe if the median number of games, the average number of games played by Big Ten teams this season is, I think it's less than 6 or it's 5, whatever it is. Basically, if a number of games get canceled across the board and every team is missing a game, basically, then obviously you have to have the Big Ten Championship somehow. So at that point, you could play 5 games and get in. I don't know. Yeah,
it all depends. It's on an average number of games per team, and just looking at it, like literally for that to happen, youngster, like have to schedule every week from here on out would have to be canceled. And to be honest, it almost could be. I mean, it could. Yeah. But where they're at, I mean, I look at it. The world we're in, it sucks as a Badger fan. That Northwestern game totally sucked watching it. Northwestern, honestly, Kevin, had control of that game. Graham Mertz looked like the young quarterback that he was. Looked like he was confused a little bit. It was evident that the dominating run game that the Badgers have had over years was bottled up by Northwestern. I love the young kid Berger. I mean, he's going to be a good one. But it was evident that Northwestern, they're a good team. They're a really good team. They had a game plan, but it was evident with Graham Mertz, a young guy. Would Cohen have done any better? Probably not. Probably not, because they couldn't establish the run. Defensively, the Badgers, Northwestern's a good team. And unfortunately, Northwestern handed it to them. And it's always a tough game. But as far as, the games go in the conference, we'll let it roll as it is. I mean, we look at it, it is pretty evident when the season started. You and I both agreed, and I think most of the country would agree, Ohio State was really the only true contender in this conference that would be sniffing the college football playoff. And so I'm sitting here today going, man, I know Coach Day is not going to be able to coach on Saturday. He's in the protocol. Right. My best out to him. I'm going to give my best to everybody now that has it, since I have it, and I know what it is to go through this. It is not fun. So best wishes to him. I know Coach knows me from an anthill, but I really hope they play, because I want the Big Ten represented in the college football playoff. And Ohio State is the team in the conference that is good enough to be there. But unfortunately, if this game now gets canceled on Saturday, their hopes could be darted also. Yeah. Luckily, we're recording this on Tuesday, the 1st, the new college football playoff ranking will come out. Hopefully, Ohio State will land in and stay around 4. Hopefully, they'll be in the top 4, even though they didn't play, because I do believe they are one of the top 4 teams in the country. Unfortunately, if they can't play games, I can't fault the committee for dropping them if all of a sudden games are being canceled. I can't fault the committee for that when there's teams below them that are playing. You can't just say, okay, well, they look good from a game 3 weeks ago. I can't fault the committee if they would all of a sudden drop Ohio State down. So I hope no more games for Ohio State get canceled, because I do want to see a Big Ten team in the college football playoff. And I know you're an Ohio State fan, so you definitely want to see them there. But as a Big Ten fan, I can't imagine, and I'm in a number of groups in Facebook, and people are like, they want that game canceled. They don't know how. Why don't you want a representative from your conference in the college football playoff?
The people that are saying that are absolutely idiotic. Like, if you think Maryland tried dodging Ohio State, or any of these teams are dodging other teams so they don't lose by 70, it's still advantageous for you to actually play that game, because it could help Ohio State get into the playoff, which helps make Ohio State money, which inevitably helps make the Big Ten money, which inevitably helps make you money. Like, these teams, they share an amount of money every single year based on revenue. And if you want no teams in any major bowls or the college football playoff, guess what? That means less money for you. So that's fine. If you want to do that, great. But I think every institution wants more money. I think that's fair to say. So, no, I don't think teams are dodging other teams because they think they might lose. That's absurd. Because on one hand, you could also pull an upset and beat Ohio State. Ask Purdue. Ask Iowa the last few years. I mean, so let alone these other like trying to avoid Iowa or trying to, like, are you kidding me? It makes zero sense at the end of the day. I
will say this, youngster, on the Big Ten protocol, the 21-day thing to me seems a little overkill. It really does. As far as if you test positive, you got to be out, 21 days? That's what it is for a player. Yeah. I believe that's overkill. I mean, I'm sitting here, and I'll use my personal experience now. I went to an official testing site. I got tested. I got an official email that said you are positive for COVID-19. I had a county official, a Brown County official, call me to talk to me about tracing, about quarantining, and about when I can return to work. And I started my symptoms prior to Thanksgiving on that Mondays when I went and got tested. So a week from this past Monday, I have to quarantine till Saturday. I can return to work on Monday. So that is 14 days?
Right.
Granted, if I am symptom-free, blah, 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 I'm not, and I don't have to go get retested. It is basically a self-proclamation that I feel better and I can go to work. I was giving the instructions as to what I need to do and what I should be looking for to go back to work, but I don't have to go get retested and be negative to go back to work. These players are getting tested. So to keep them out for 21 days, I think is overkill. And again, it's been, 8 days now, a little more than that. Not quite. I guess 8 days. I do feel a little better, but I still feel under the weather. But 21 days, that's insane to me that you can't play for 21 days. Now that I've actually went through it and I'm sitting here with COVID and looking at, and again, a lot of time to think. There's nothing else to do when you're in a room by yourself. But think, 21 days. I'm going to be able to go back to work in 14.
Right.
Which is about the normal time that they're telling people, 10 to 14 days quarantine.
Right.
And these players are getting tested every day. So I do believe that the Big Ten rule is overkill, and I think they went a little bit overboard with that. And I think that maybe, it's part of this problem too. Canceling games, I understand a certain percentage of your roster and your staff is infected, positive test, okay, you can't play. Fine, understand that. We're seeing it in the NFL too. But I just think it's overkill 21 days.
No, yeah, I would agree with you. And, you see players, teams across the country playing earlier than that, not spreading it in games right after players are testing. So, it is overkill. They're leaning on being more safe, but the conference, may be costing itself a lot of money because of that. And that's, we've talked about that, safety versus money and what route the Big Ten decides to go. And so, but anyway, that was 2 weeks ago. There was a game canceled 2 weeks ago. Last week's action. We'll go through each game, but to me, it's more about looking forward, big picture of this conference, what can happen. But last week there were 2 games canceled: Ohio State, Illinois, and Minnesota, Wisconsin. So there were only 5 games? And on Friday, November 27th, to get into last week's action, Iowa against Nebraska. We did not have any locks for this week because we did not do a show for this.
Hey, we didn't lose. We did not lose, youngster.
There we go. We were unbeaten, so to say. But Iowa beat Nebraska 26-20. Iowa's won 4 straight games. That's something to note. Tyler Goodson, Iowa's running back, had 30 carries in this game. Nebraska, I don't know what you can really say about the direction of the program, where it's going. Is Scott Frost taking this team in the right direction? Are they getting better? It's hard to say you're getting better if you're 1-4. Adrian Martinez played in this game. He completed 18 of 20 balls. But at the end of the day, you have to convert into touchdowns. You have to score more than 20 points. You can have 90% accuracy, but at the end of the day, if it's 3rd and 6 and you complete a ball for 4 yards, that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything if it's 2nd and 10 and you complete one for 8 yards, and then on 3rd and 2 you get stuffed and you have to punt. So, stats can look nice, but at the end of the day, you have to convert on 3rd down. You have to score touchdowns instead of field goals. You have to connect on your field goals instead of missing them, and so on. So Nebraska just did not do that against Iowa, hence them losing by 1 score. But so just interject whenever you feel free, Troy. But I'll just keep going on unless you interrupt. On Saturday,
it was real quick on this.
Yeah.
You look at it, and we mentioned this with Frost in Nebraska. The expectations of that program were so high when he got hired. Like, they went from a mediocre Big Ten team to all of a sudden we're going to win a national championship.
Right.
Why? You could have hired Vince Lombardi. You could have hired Don Shula. You name any of the great coaches out there.
Like
you're
Vrabel.
going to all this. There you go. You put Vrabel in there. You're gonna elevate a mediocre Big Ten team for the last couple of years into all of a sudden a Big Ten contender and a national championship contender. Why don't you start with winning a Big Ten championship first? or getting to the
Right.
Big Ten championship game first. Then start putting these top 10 expectations on a program.
Right.
And I don't want to say that's why this program is all of a sudden in disarray because, oh, my God, the expectations are overwhelming, and that's a bunch of malarkey for even saying that. Being in the sports world, being in a competitive sports world, playing, coaching, when there are expectations on your shoulders, youngster, you played travel basketball, and your expectations coming from your community with that travel team, you represented that community, right? So when you went to a tournament, there were expectations of how you're going to compete, right? Like you're the best of the best in your little area.
Right.
And so you're expected to do this. I was on competitive soccer. I played college. I coached college. When the expectations are there, your mind starts, I don't want to say believing it, but sometimes you're trying so hard to be perfect. Like, I've got to do this. This is the expectation. I've got to be better. Well, guess what? You can't get better before you get good at one thing. And that's what I think I see happening in Nebraska. They're trying to be Big Ten champions when they should just worry about starting to build a foundation to get to the championship game. Like, start getting good at some things and keep building on them. But they, wanted to skip all those steps in between. And it's backfiring right now. I think you got to strip it down and start over if you're Scott Frost. And you know what? It's COVID-19. Give them a pass. Let next year be a measuring stick. But start over. And strip the expectations. Take them away. Because you're a mediocre team in the Big Ten. That's all I got.
Yeah, and from my little point of view on what I did sports-wise back in the day was you can pick up a really talented player from 40 minutes away to compete on your team, and that's great, and you practice with them, and this happened where we picked up a couple kids that literally lived 45 minutes away, and they would play games with us. They would travel to tournaments with us, do that kind of stuff, and they'd practice with us. They'd drive 45 minutes to practice, and you can see the talent. It's like, yeah, we got better because look at these kids. Look at what they can do. But at the end of the day, you either played better as a team on game day or you don't. And you can have expectations within yourself and the team, and you can believe that. But unless you actually do it on the court, on the field, on the ice rink, on the whatever, then it is what it is. Your record is what it is, and that's how good you are. You can be more talented than the other team, but if you lose, at the end of the day, you lose. So, Virginia winning a national title, maybe they weren't the most talented team in college basketball that year, but they won the title, and so that's all that matters. And the year before, if you're super talented and you're more talented than a 16 seed, but you lose the game, then it is what it is. Your season's done. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, your expectations can be through the roof. They can be terrible, but either things come together on game day or they don't. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into that, and Nebraska has not been doing those things, clearly, because they keep losing more than they win. So, anyway, moving on. Saturday. Michigan State over Northwestern. That was kind of the biggie to take away, really. Northwestern, this is their first loss. At the same time, Northwestern is still certainly in command of the Big Ten West. That's, I guess, what's interesting, Troy, is if Ohio State doesn't get to 6 games and Northwestern wins the West, you're looking at playing, well, they're definitely playing Indiana, if that's the case. Northwestern can certainly win that game with their defense and win the Big Ten. And at the end of the day, I mean, it's weird how it would be viewed, because Northwestern could go the entire season, lose one game, win the Big Ten championship. And what do we think of that come next year if they don't beat Ohio State en route to that? You had a good season. You beat Wisconsin. That was fantastic. At the end of the day, you still lost a game you shouldn't have, which cost you a perfect record, which may cost you a college football playoff spot, because this team is ranked 8th currently. It's not as though they're in 20th, or I guess 8th a week ago, going into that Michigan State game. But I guess to me it'd be interesting to see a year from now if Northwestern goes on to, go 7-1 and win the Big Ten, beat Indiana, and inevitably go to a bowl game, assuming bowl games happen, and do what you do. But
I heard the Sun Bowl today is going to be canceled for the first time since 1935.
Yeah. So it's just not to take away from what would be Northwestern's Big Ten title, but if you are doing that without having to play Ohio State just because they didn't play enough games, it's not as though Ohio State disappointed and they lost twice. They're just not playing enough. So I don't know. It would be interesting. Certainly in my mind, Troy, honestly, I would take something away. And maybe that's not right. But it would leave a lot on the table if Northwestern wins the Big Ten this year, and yet they didn't have to play Ohio State because Ohio State only played 5 games instead of 6.
Yeah, unfortunately, youngster, we talk about this in all the sports. 20 years from now, there might be a little asterisk that said COVID-19 year, but in the rafters, it'll still say 2020 Big Ten champion.
For sure.
And so 20 years from now, a kid born today is looking up in the rafters, is attending Northwestern and sees 2020 Big Ten football champions. They're not going to care that they didn't play Ohio State. They're not going to care about COVID-19. It'll be something that'll be wrapped in history books, like, oh, what a year we had. But in the rafters, it'll still swing 2020 Big Ten football champions.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. It just depends on who you are, I guess, and how much,
Well, I'll remember. Right. I'll be a grand old 70 at that time, and I'll still remember 2020.
Yeah,
maybe.
There's no forgetting. There's no forgetting this year.
All right, let's move on to some other games.
Yeah, Indiana over Maryland, 27-11. The big monster thing about this is not Indiana winning by 16 points, going to 5-1. That's great, but Michael Penix Jr., their quarterback, torn ACL out of the year. So that's huge. The news to take away there. Yeah, and again, Indiana could very well be representing the Big Ten East in the Big Ten title game and be without their starting quarterback. And this is what
he was staking claim, youngster. Nobody was really, I mean, we knew of him. We do a Big Ten show. We follow Big Ten. But if you look and, as I was following and as I follow the Big Ten, I mean, his name came up and he did this and did this. But in my mind, he was trying to stake a claim as Big Ten Player of the Year. The guy was playing that good at quarterback where you could have mentioned him as Big Ten Player of the Year. He may not have won it, but he certainly deserved to be mentioned.
He would have been second behind Justin Fields, and I don't even know if Justin Fields is eligible for awards of that nature if they don't play in 6 games. I have no idea. But, to me, he would have been second. There's no one on Northwestern that would have overtaken that, and no one from a 2-loss team or Wisconsin in my mind. Penix would have been the guy.
Yeah, so that's a big loss for Indiana. So we'll see how that affects them moving forward.
Yeah, again, it just depends on how the rest of the year shakes out in terms of cancellations or not. But anyway, the other 2 games from last week: Penn State over Michigan, 27-17. Hallelujah! Penn State won a game. They are now 1-5.
I watched that game.
Did you?
Yeah, again, I'm quarantined, youngster. What else am I going to do? I'll tell you, I've watched a lot of stuff. We don't have enough time on this show. I'm watching Spectrum original shows. This show called The Temple. I love it. I love it. I was tired of watching sports. Believe it or not, I got tired. I got tired of watching sports, youngster. I'm quarantined in a room for 20 hours a day, literally. Yeah. And but I'll tell you, I watched that game, and Penn State. It's evident to me it is very evident to me that it is time for Harbaugh to go. I know I've said it now, probably about a month ago I said it. I just watched this game. And, James Franklin, it's one of those years. You can kind of, lick your finger, do the little in the air, just chalk it up to COVID maybe. I think Franklin will do a fine job at Penn State, but Harbaugh at Michigan, it's time to move on. It really is. I mean, then there's going to be a couple of jobs in the NFL, and I think Harbaugh knows that. And I don't want to say he looked disengaged. I mean, I think he's faking it well, but I think he's checked out. Harbaugh's checked out.
Yeah. Yeah. At the end of the day, he knows they're not really playing for anything. Either they beat Ohio State, and that's fantastic, or they're just not playing for anything on a week-to-week basis anymore.
I hate to say this because you're an Ohio State fan, but wouldn't that be some poetic justice? He beats Ohio State and resigns.
that would actually be hilarious. That would.
Because at this point, so is that what the boosters are saying? Like, okay, well, we're going to wait. We're going to wait. If he beats Ohio State, bring him back.
Right.
If
Maybe.
I'm Harbaugh and I beat Ohio State, why the hell would I want to come back?
Because you can beat the best team in the conference, Troy.
Oh, yeah. Well, you can. But I don't want that to happen again, youngster. I don't want any Ohio State games canceled. I want Ohio State in the college football playoff. I want to see them against the best of the best. But it would be, like you said, it would be funny if Michigan, for some ungodly reason, pulled this massive upset in Harbaugh's last game. He beats Ohio State, walks in the press conference, flips the bird, and says, "I'm done. Good riddance," and walks out. I mean, it would be funny. But as a Big Ten fan, as a Big Ten co-host of the show, I want Ohio State to win. I want Ohio State in the college football playoff. Yeah. But it would be funny. It would be.
Yeah. To me, once Michigan got completely blasted by Wisconsin, that to me was when, okay, you're done. To me, that was it, because that's a program you theoretically out-recruit every single year. And so if you're getting killed by a team like that, it's one thing to lose to Wisconsin.
Yeah, it's one thing to get beat, but they got dominated.
Yeah. Right. It just wasn't even remotely close. That's more than...
Like the score of the Penn State game that they lost to Penn State, that should have been more like the Wisconsin-Michigan score.
Right.
A 2-score game, a 10-point game, a 14-point game. I mean, in college athletics, youngsters, let's be real. You lose by 14, that's a big number, but that's more common to lose by 14 to even a better opponent. But when you lose by 4 or 5 scores, that's ridiculous.
Right. Yeah. So, anyway, Kevon Lee, running back at Penn State, he had a good day. So, if there's something to note there.
A lot of people have good days against Michigan.
Yeah, they do. Michigan's 2-4 now. By the way, Penn State is still last in the conference. Why are they last? because Rutgers beat Purdue. That's the last game from last week that we're going over here. So Rutgers is 2-4.
2 wins for Rutgers.
They played 6 games. Michigan played 6 games. They have the same record. I mean, that's...
Michigan gets the tiebreaker, though, youngster, because in triple overtime, Michigan got by mighty Rutgers.
Yes. Very, very mighty Rutgers. Aiden O'Connell missed this game, Purdue's quarterback. So Jack Plummer was in. You can't necessarily say that's an excuse. Obviously, you're better if your starting quarterback is in, but they still scored 30 points against Rutgers. The problem was giving up 37. That's what happens at Purdue, is sometimes they give up 37 points. And unfortunately, they only scored 30. So that's, unless something drastically changes, this happens every year to Purdue, where you give up 37 points, probably multiple times during a season. Because
I think this is a good time, youngster, to say how important a good college football coach is. Because Rutgers has 2 wins. When's the last time they had 2 wins in the Big Ten? And has the scope of that program as far as the skill level of players changed from one year to the next? Not really, especially in a COVID-19 year. You made a coaching change and you brought in a culture of winning. You brought in a coach that expects to win, even though he knows that. See, and this is the difference right now between a Frost and a Rutgers. Rutgers understands where they're at. Rutgers understands who they are in the Big Ten. We are a bottom dweller in the Big Ten. Right. May we catch lightning in a bottle one year and be near the top? We could. But they're doing it right there, youngsters. They're buying into the program, and they're going out and they're fighting for 60 minutes. Fighting for 60 minutes. And sometimes longer if you're going to triple overtime. But that starts at the top. It starts with the coach. It starts with the coach believing in his players and the players believing in the coach. And I'm not saying that they don't in Scott Frost in Nebraska. But I'm just thinking the way that the expectations are laid out in both of these programs. Like Nebraska, college football playoff or bust. Okay, well, you're going to bust. Rutgers, hey, it's win a game or bust. Hey, we won a game. Let's win another one.
Right.
Let's go win another one. Yeah, we did. We won 2.
And same thing at Michigan.
Maybe they'll win 3 by the end of the year. Who knows?
Yeah, and the same thing for Michigan. It's beat Ohio State, get to the college football playoff, or bust. That's just what it is.
We talked about that, youngster. In reality, though, that is not an unfair expectation. It really is not. I mean, where you're at with the prestige of that program, is it unfair for the coach? Yes. But when you look at that program, you're not trying to rebuild. You got to get to that level where, you know what, we're the second or third best team, but that's what they want there. So maybe it is a little unfair, but to have that expectation of that program there, I don't think it's totally unrealistic. Like as a Badger fan, my expectation is to win their division every year. That's my expectation of the Badgers. That's what they've built. They have built that expectation. And now every once in a while they're going to get a quarterback like Mertz. You and I have talked about it. Maybe one trip to the college football playoff in his 4 years, that would be my Christmas. That would be great to me. But every year, my expectation, granted now this year, due to COVID, can't play in the Big Ten Championship. However, every year, that's my expectation of the Badgers. I expect them to win that division. Anything less than that, disappointment to me.
Yeah. One thing I want to say, too, is what were the expectations when Dabo Swinney got hired at Clemson? Was it to be a national power and finish in the top 2 and beat Alabama multiple times? Or was Clemson at that point like a top 25 fringe program, winning 8 games a year? I mean, that's what Clemson was. And Chip Kelly going to Oregon, what were the expectations for a New Hampshire coach going to Oregon? Was it to blow everyone out by 30 at halftime and bench your starters in the Pac-12 and crush USC by 60 points and make it to the national title game and lose to Auburn? Expectations are there's something. Oregon didn't just magically get to be a top 2-3 team. It was based on coaching. And same thing at Clemson and same thing at Rutgers to a much lesser extent here. We're seeing them actually be competitive in the Big Ten, competitive with Michigan, beating Purdue, beating other teams. They can do it. It's been shown multiple weeks now, half the time, half the games they play. I mean, they're competitive or winning. So that's all coaching. And credit goes to the players too, but certainly coaching has something to do with it.
As I said, though, youngster, you look at the roster from a year ago to this year. Did it make a major leap in talent?
No.
Maybe in some positions.
Sure.
Yeah, a few guys here and there, but it's not a major overhaul where all of a sudden you went from we suck and we can't win a Big Ten game to, oh, we got a bunch of 5-star recruits on this team. No.
Yeah.
I give the players a ton of credit. But again, it's the organization, it's the program top to bottom that is they are playing within the means of what they're trying to accomplish. They have a common goal, and they go out and play hard. And you know what? I know being around and being a coach, sometimes playing hard doesn't warrant the results of winning. Believe me, I've been there. I've been there in a rebuild year as a coach. And you know what? You can give me 120%. You can leave all your blood, sweat, tears on the field, but guess what? We're just not good. Effort's not good enough against teams that are the best Division II soccer program in the world. You know, we can't beat them. Doesn't matter how hard we try. So, I mean, then, you know, Rutgers going to have games like that, like in Ohio, against an Ohio State, against maybe a Penn State. But then you get that team where, you know what, a team takes you light and, hey, you're more talented than us, but guess what? We're gonna beat you with effort because we got enough skill where we can make enough plays that we can beat you. And that's what Rutgers is doing. So I'm going to use your phrase, hats off to Rutgers for me, youngster. I mean, that is my biggest surprise of the Big Ten this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me see here. Okay. I'm on a new computer, by the way. So
new computer?
It's different, yeah. Don't ask me why.
Did Mrs. Youngster buy you a new computer?
Well, that's the funny thing is it came last Christmas. So I've just been holding off on switching everything from my old one to this one, and I'm still not even done yet. But yeah, so it's different. It's a good different, but it's different. So for this week, starting at noon, December 5th, Saturday. So no Friday games. That's surprising. That's different. Already Minnesota Northwestern has been canceled. Should be noted that Northwestern is 5-1. They've already played 6 games. So theoretically, they could actually sit out the rest of the way and have some nice bye weeks and, you know, vacation time going into the Big Ten Championship. But I don't think they probably see it that way. But that's just, you know, is what it is.
And this is where my earlier rant about the 21 days, youngster, the Minnesota game being canceled, Minnesota with their outbreak, you know, they got their players that can't play for 21 days because of the protocol. You're telling me that there can. So this is where I have a problem with this. You're gonna cancel a game last week against Wisconsin, which is fine. But now all of a sudden you're going to cancel the next week game, right? Which would be that 14 days. See, you found out that there's positive tests and you have not contained it within another 7 days? I mean, we've contained it in our house, our little house here in Green Bay. My wife and I have contained it. My wife and I have it. My son doesn't. So how do you not contain it with all of the measures you have to be able to play a football game a week after you cancel one because of a COVID outbreak? Does not make sense to me. So I'm really getting going on this thing now. It's more pissing me off now that I've contracted this and have a lot of time to think. Maybe I'm being more contrite in my old age now. Since I did turn 50 last week, youngster. How about that? No Thanksgiving and my 50th birthday. Happy birthday to the old man. Guess what your present is? COVID-19.
Yeah. Not ideal.
I'm not bitter.
Not at all. Once something happens to you, once it directly affects you, it makes you think more about something and have a bigger opinion, bigger take on something. So that's human nature, but that's not, anything other than that, in my opinion. So there's 6 games scheduled to be played. Again, we don't know with some of these, like Ohio State, Michigan State at noon, supposedly on ABC. Troy, I'll let you guess the spread. We'll kind of breeze through these games here to wrap up the show. But
there's nothing really to get into each of the games. I mean, Ohio State at Michigan State. No coach. I mean, sometimes the coach is worth a couple points. But you still got your players. I say Ohio State. It's at Michigan State, right?
Yep.
It's at, not that it matters with no fans. I'll say Ohio State by 20.5.
24. So you're right there. As far as, by the way, for those listening in, I personally do not, I know some, but I do not know who is being left out of games, if these games are being played due to COVID. I have not kept up with every single team, every single instance of what players might play, might not, the timeline, how it breaks down based on when
changes by the hour.
Yeah. So my apologies. Genuinely.
No, you don't need to apologize, youngster. It literally changes by the hour. As I watch the ticker on ESPN, everything changes. Before, like 2 years ago, you could watch the ticker on ESPN go by. You could go and you could clean the house and you could get, a milkshake and a burger from McDonald's, come back and watch the ticker, and it would be the exact same thing. Right. Now, I'm sitting in quarantine, and the thing changes the second time it goes through. Updated news, update, COVID-19 update. So the things change every hour.
Yeah. Yeah, you're correct. But also, we are recording the show on Tuesday, December 1st. So we are a few days ahead of schedule here as far as the show is concerned and when these games are being played. But yeah, Ohio State, Michigan State, obviously Ohio State should take care of business. Hopefully it actually happens so that Ohio State can prove itself in the Big Ten Championship. At that point, if they lose, they lose. I'm an Ohio State fan. Of course, I want to see them win every single game by 100 points. But if they lose, they lose. I just want them to actually have the chance at proving themselves or not. So I think that's fair as far as a desire. But maybe that's just me. Nebraska at Purdue, Troy, also at noon.
Oh, Nebraska at Purdue. Wow. Shoosh, this might be a pick'em game. I'm going to say, since the game is at home, they'll give Purdue the 1.5 COVID points. I'll say Purdue by 3.5.
It is Purdue by 2. So you're, basically spot on in the sense that it's pretty much a pick'em game. The other thing I wanted to mention, let me see if I can pull it up here. Rondae Moore did come back 2 weeks ago for Purdue, so he has played in 2 games now. I believe it was I don't remember if it was a hamstring thing. I believe it was more of an injury thing. Again, the exact details I'm not sure of, and but regardless, it's been nice being able to see Purdue's offense score 30 and lose, but it's been nice being able to see Rondae Moore back on the field. That first game, the first quarter, I think he was extremely impactful. Him and David Bell, those two are, again, future NFL receivers, without a doubt. But anyway, so it's nice to have Rondae Moore back. But yeah, that's really all I have on that game. We'll see what happens in that game and discuss it a week from now. But not going to go.
Maybe we'll discuss it
at Purdue at this point. We'll go over it. Go over all the games.
If it's
also
played.
at noon. Yes, very true. Also at noon on Saturday, Penn State at Rutgers, Troy.
So this is that game. You're looking right now at the standings, and if you're just like a non, I don't want to say a non, you can't be a non-casual. If you're a casual football fan perusing standings, and you're like on like sportsbook betting, and you see Rutgers has a better record than Penn State, and you're not like a history of the Big Ten, you're like, wow, Rutgers is having a better year than Penn State. I think Penn State is a better team, but you know what, Kevin? Yeah. Rutgers, like I said, they're going to play for 60 minutes. They're going to play for 60 minutes. They brought Michigan to triple overtime. I mean, Penn State beat Michigan by 10, and Michigan's in shambles. But I think Rutgers is going to hang tough. But I don't know if the odds makers are actually buying into Rutgers yet.
Right.
But it is at Rutgers. So, not that it matters if it was in Happy Valley with 100 and some thousand, it would be Penn State by probably 24. But I'm going to say, I don't know, this is a tough one. I'm going to say Penn State by 13.5.
Yeah, it's only Penn State by 10, which, again, is it's a joke if you said that spread a month and a half ago going into the season. But here we are, and Penn State's looking up at Rutgers 6 games in on the standings. This 10-point spread, it's the smallest spread between these two teams since 2015. Penn State won that game by 25 points. So they covered the spread there. That was an 8.5-point spread. And Penn State said, no, we're a little better than Rutgers by more than 8.5. So, but again, Penn State is playing as poorly as I've seen Penn State play in a long time. So, again, we'll see what happens and diagnose the game afterwards next week's show. But yeah, Penn State's got more talent. They should win this game by double digits. It shouldn't be a contest, but they have not played well. Sean Clifford has not.
No, they have
well.
not.
He's been benched. It was supposed to be a very close game between them and Ohio State, and that was going to determine the Big Ten winner, and Penn State has certainly fallen short of that as far as expectations are concerned. The other 3 games here, I'll save the best for last. We'll go with Iowa at Illinois at 3:30 Eastern. So there's 3 noon games, 3:30 Eastern time games. Nice little tongue twister there. But anyway, Iowa at Illinois. Troy.
Iowa's playing well. They won 4 in a row now.
Yeah.
Well, Illinois is being Illinois. I'm going to say Iowa by 14.5.
Iowa by 13.5. So just under the 2 touchdown mark as opposed to over. Again, you're basically hitting most of these. Obviously not right on the head, but you're getting the grand scheme. Yeah.
Close.
That's all you can ask for. This game, realistically, I don't know Brandon Peters. Again, his timeline, I'm not 100% sure in terms of when he is returning for Illinois. Let's see here. Supposedly, he would be ready for this game in terms of his timeline, just based on what I've read. But regardless, it's ever changing. This game, regardless, though, Iowa should win this game. They are the better team overall. They've been hot. They know to ride Tyler Goodson on the ground. That's the way to win when you have a new quarterback. Spencer Petras is, he's got talent. He's capable, but he is a new quarterback in the Big Ten. And you've got a proven running game. Iowa's learned that over the last month. That's why they've won 4 straight. So I don't see things really changing in this game.
Nah, they should be able to pound the ball on the ground against Illinois.
Yep, absolutely. Other 3:30 game, Maryland at Michigan, Troy.
Maryland at Michigan. When's the last time I said this could be a pick'em game? Maryland is nowhere nearly as talented as Michigan, but again, I believe Harbaugh is mentally checked out. I believe the players are just going through the motions. It is Michigan against Maryland, more talent, so I'm going to say Michigan by 6.5.
Again, you're close. Michigan by 4.5. Maryland's got Tua's brother.
When's the last time a Maryland-Michigan game was under a touchdown?
Oh yeah, I know.
When? We
I
don't think we would find it. I don't think if we went back every year, we would find a spread where Michigan wasn't favored by less than a touchdown against Maryland.
No, not since we've been doing shows, which is, This is
not since you've been alive, probably, youngster. When's the last time Maryland was relevant? When was it Flacco? Flacco's from Maryland, right?
He went to like Delaware State or something.
Okay, so he's not even. I can't even remember the last time Maryland was relevant in football. They were maybe for a year or two, but they probably didn't play Michigan at that time because they probably weren't in the Big Ten.
Right, they had good years. I forgot when that was. The 60s, 70s,
They haven't had
whatever
good
it
years
was.
in the Big Ten.
No, they haven't. So yeah, I'm with you.
I would imagine if we went back every year from the inception of Maryland in the Big Ten to now, that there's never been a spread less than 7.
Yeah.
Probably never a spread less than double digits.
Probably right. I wouldn't disagree with that. I'd have to look it up.
If you're a Michigan hater, you're cheering hard for Maryland today, this weekend. Cheering hard.
Yeah. And Maryland can get it done. They're 2-2. If this game happens due to COVID and all the stuff that has happened, Maryland's capable. They started out the year terribly, and then they have somewhat righted the ship in the games that they have played over the last month or so. So realistically, 4.5 point spread, it sounds about right. Unfortunately.
No respect from Vegas. No respect.
No, definitely not. But anywho, last game here. Indiana at Wisconsin, 3:30 Eastern, ABC on Saturday.
It's going to be a good one. I think that'll be a good one. Like you said,
no panic.
Right now, no panics. And that Wisconsin defense, they've got to be itching. I was upset when when the Minnesota game got canceled, Kevin. That's one of my all-time favorite rival games, not just because I'm a Badger fan, but those games, those Badger-Gopher games are always intense. And the thing is, because that game was not on, it was pretty cool. What they did is they condensed a bunch of games into 1 hour, like the whole game into 1 hour, and they just fast forward. Like the play was done, and all of a sudden they were up to the line, they were running the next play. So you watched the whole game in an hour, and that was being played on Saturday. So I got to watch like eight of the Paul Bunyan Axe games. It was awesome. I saw some Russell Wilson. I saw some of my old guys that I really liked. Some real old games. It was awesome. I loved it. But this game, Kevin, that Wisconsin defense is for real. I've said it. It sucks that they can't play in the Big Ten championship game. This is to me that this defense, they've always had good defenses, big, burly, we're going to beat you at the line, but they always had trouble on the outside containing the edge, right? This defense, to me, Kevin, they fly to the ball now, sideline to sideline. They're quick. They're fast. They can get pressure on the quarterback. New quarterback at Indiana. Graham Mertz, I think, will learn from his last game against Northwestern, maybe a little bit overwhelmed. I don't want to say he wasn't prepared. I can't believe that Paul Christ was not going to have him prepared. He's a young kid. He's going to make mistakes. You got to take some of those growing pains, right? I think he'd learn from it. He's going to be a good one. I think Wisconsin's going to go out with a chip on their shoulder, not in a bad way. Just we want to play, we want to play, and I think they're going to go. And I think they're going to beat Indiana handily. I think it'll be double digits because Indiana doesn't have a quarterback. It would be a different story if they had their starting quarterback. What I think Vegas is going to say, Wisconsin at Indiana having a good year, but the quarterback is not out. I'm still going to say they're going to favor Wisconsin on the road by 5.5.
No, Wisconsin's at home.
Oh, Wisconsin's at home.
Yeah.
All right, so Wisconsin's at home. Then Wisconsin is favored by 6.5. Touchdown favorite.
They're favored by 14. So, Of course, Troy, you've been basically right on all of these. And the one you get wrong is you not giving Wisconsin enough love, which it's a weekly tradition. It really is.
Now, if you think about what I said, though, youngster, what did I say? I think Wisconsin wins by double digits.
Yeah.
I was trying to pick a spread. And I guess Vegas really believes that not having a starting quarterback against this Wisconsin defense is really important. Because think if Indiana was healthy, youngster, that's not a 14-point game. There's no way that they're going to favor Wisconsin by 14.
Yeah, this would be a one-score game, in my opinion. And it's evidence in the NFL. If you take Rodgers against the Lions and the Packers and what the spread would be, you're talking probably close to 10 points. If you take Rodgers out of the equation and you throw in whoever their backup is and you say, okay, what's the spread now? Yeah, Packers still should win, but 3 points, 4 points, like it's a touchdown difference, according to Vegas, as far as quality quarterbacks compared to their backup. It's around a touchdown. That's what Vegas usually gives good starting quarterbacks compared to their backup. And I think you're seeing it right here. Nothing against.
And the thing is, I never picked the Badger right. I never picked the Badger spread right.
No, you don't. But by the way, Indiana's quarterback Jack Tuttle, he is a talented guy coming out of high school, and Wisconsin recruited him. A number of places recruited him. Where did he start? I found it, and then I lost it. Where did he start? Was it UCLA? No, I lost it. Utah. So he originally signed with Utah, transferred, now backing up at Indiana. He's a talented guy. I want to say he was a 4-star recruit. He can throw the football. But again, it's different when you have a Big Ten potential player of the year at quarterback compared to a backup who is talented, but obviously not, doesn't get the reps, not as refined, against a really good defense too. So, yeah, I'd expect Wisconsin to win by a couple scores. We are not even talking about locking any of these games, but
no,
yeah,
no way. I mean, it's just too crazy of a year. Too crazy.
We're
too crazy.
We could go winless in terms of locks of the week this year.
No, we still got a couple weeks, youngster. We'll see this. And see, if we did any this week, you could just blame it on the COVID. You just blame the old man COVID. Blame the old man's COVID on it. And I blame that show on that. So for everybody listening in, if you think I'm off my rocker, I'm sorry. I am, and I'm still recovering from COVID-19. I mean, I'm not using that as an excuse, but I told you, youngster, I don't feel like myself. I just feel fatigued and, trying to get by day. But before we leave, I do want to thank Interpeak Coffee for sponsoring our virtual studio line, and I do again want to thank all my friends and family that listen in for all the support that you've given me over this last week, including yourself, youngster. I appreciate it. It has been a trying week for my wife and I as we both battle COVID, but we'll get through it. And again, I do appreciate all the support, all the thoughts, all the prayers that people have sent my way on social media. So I do appreciate all the fans. So thanks for all your love and support. Anything else before we let the fans go, youngster?
No, get healthy, and hopefully we get some Big Ten games we'll get some, I'm sure. But hopefully we get the majority of Big Ten games to watch this weekend.
All righty. Get that new computer set up, youngster, for our radio show that we record on Thursday.
Yep.
But for the youngster, I am the old man. Hope everybody stays safe. Wear your mask. Don't spread COVID. We'll get back at you next week. Same place, same time.